Last week, I had Dax, our youngest, who is a 3-year-old, at the doctor's office with me. And over in the corner was a little girl who was playing all by herself. Dax looked up at me and he said, "Hey, Mom, can I go make a friend?" I said, "Of course." But he was a little too shy to do it on his own, so he grabbed my hand and together we walked across the room. And Dax knelt down and said, "Will you play with me?" Now, if only inviting people to our lives was that simple, to just stand up and walk over and say, "Will you be my friend?" The Bible says that we are to invite the lonely into our lives, but it's not always that easy. On Sunday, David talked about how the Lord places the lonely in families. And if we are to be Christ followers, then we should do the same. We need to be a little bit like Dax and look around and see who are the lonely around us. Today, if you turn on the TV, there's loneliness everywhere. We have a refugee crisis of families who are away from everything they've ever known. They don't know the language. They don't even know how to get groceries. And I can imagine that they feel very lonely. We have a foster system in California that currently has over 62,000 children in it. Lonely kids who need moms and dads. There are 153 million orphans in the world who are alone, scavenging for food, wondering who will love them. You have a neighbor who sits alone in their living room with nobody to talk to. There are countless lonely people around us. And it's just not as easy sometimes as walking over and saying, "Will you be my friend?" Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not. And as a matter of fact, the Bible says that including people into our family is going to be hard. The way that we were brought into the family of God was not without great cost. Paul says in Colossians 1:13 that he rescued us from the dominion of darkness and brought us into the kingdom of the Son that he loves, in whom we have redemption and the forgiveness of sins. Elsewhere in Ephesians and in Galatians, Paul talks about how we have been included into the family of God only through our own adoption. And that adoption cost Jesus his very life. The way that he placed the lonely in families was to give up everything he had so that we might be included in a family. So that begs the question, if we're going to be followers of Jesus, will we see the lonely? And when we do, will we be willing to pay a great price to include them into our own families? This means, am I willing to give up the comfort and the space in my home to bring in a child who needs to be loved? Am I willing to clear my calendar to help a refugee family move into an apartment? Am I willing to knock on my neighbor's door to see if they'd like to come and share a meal, even though I may never have seen their face before? Jesus gave up his entire life to bring us into his family. And so my challenge for you today is to ask him, "Lord, what should I give up so that others may be part of your family too?"